I've been quite sad recently, and in the desire to improve my sadness, I kept trying to find out more and more about this idea of happiness. Well, but before we go there, let's talk about sadness. To be honest, I've been very distraught at some aspects of the work that I do. And as a result, I've been wanting to quit, get out, and find an easier way. But not knowing how, I've ended up digging my own grave every single day. And each day I wake up with the negativity, thinking how bad my job is, how horrible I seem to be doing my work, and how this work simply isn't living up to my expectations. So, in my search for answers, I read The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt, and I want to share with you the 3 lessons that were helpful for me in helping to overcome some of that sadness. The first point he makes is that happiness is a formula. Happiness is a formula. And on page 219 in my book, he writes, happiness equals to set point plus condition plus voluntary activities. And it sounds ridiculous, isn't it? That happiness can be reduced to a formula. But if we look at it, what is happiness? And in this formula that Jonathan Haidt describes, happiness equals to set point, which is your genes. Basically, your genes does determine to a certain extent how depressed or how optimistic you are, whether you are growing up with a greater disposition to depression or to optimism. Then there is C, which is the conditions. And in this, Jonathan Haidt talks about the environment that you live in, this environment of love and relationships. And lastly, voluntary activities, which comes through the work that you do. So for example, Csikszentmihalyi talks about the idea or concept of flow that comes from work. And as you build in some aspects of these voluntary activities like sport, meditation, work that you enjoy and find flow in, that's when happiness becomes to come about. And there's 3 elements: your set point, your conditions that you live in, and voluntary activities helps you to create that sense of happiness within you. The second thing that Jonathan Haidt talks about, and which I drew from this book, is that happiness is a habit. Happiness is a habit. When I look at every single morning when I was trying to make myself unhappy by thinking about all the things that weren't present in my work, I was throwing deliberately a pity party for myself every single day. And once my sister remarked that, John, it looks like you're throwing a pity party every day for yourself, digging a hole and a grave for yourself to go in and to pity yourself. When I shared this with my therapist, I thought he was going to share some words of encouragement. But unfortunately, all he had to say is, well, John, I have to agree with your sister. You have been doing that. Happiness is a habit. Well, what does this mean? This means that every single day you have to make it a habit to do the things that bring you joy and happiness. And that means doing things like exercise, which give you that natural uprush of dopamine. Things like meditation that help you to be aware of some of your unconscious bias towards negative thought and help you to stop going there. And also things like work that helps you to find flow, and work which utilizes the skills that you have. If you're confused about the skills that you have, you can go to AuthenticHappiness.org, which is a list or questionnaire of skills that you can go through to find out what you do. And so happiness is a habit. You build up that habit by doing the things that help you to find flow rather than doing the things that help you to throw that pity party for yourself. Lastly, happiness is a choice. You can choose to be happy. I want to close with the story that probably illustrates this point about happiness being a choice. In 2018, I went to Xi'an, China to work with abandoned orphans. Many of these people or children had been found abandoned in street corners, in rubbish dumps, or on doorsteps. Often I wondered what it felt like to be told that mommy will come home, but mommy never does. And one afternoon, somewhat insensitively, I asked this 14-year-old boy as we were walking back home and asked him, "Do you miss mommy?" And he said, "No." I asked him again, this time in Chinese, 你想妈妈吗? Or do you miss mommy? And he said, "No." 不。我这边有朋友和家庭. And he said, "No, I have friends and family here." Later, when I went to his room, all I saw was a teddy bear on his bed and a suitcase under his bed. In the eyes of the world, he had nothing, but in his eyes, he had everything because he had friends and family. Today, Jonathan Haidt's book talks about the three aspects of happiness, and it being a formula, and it being a habit, and it being a choice. Today, the greatest reminder from this book is that happiness comes between. It comes between the person and the environment. And as you do the work that brings you joy within, and as you have the relationships with people that you love, your friends and your family, I trust that you will begin to find happiness, not just today, not just tomorrow, but for the rest of your life. Today, what are you doing to find happiness? You can share them in the comments below, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.